Good afternoon, everyone. Very warm welcome to our workshop on reading barriers. My name is Alet Nienaber. I'm a project manager at Macmillan Teacher Campus, and I'll be hosting the workshop today. Heather, if you could just go to the next slide. Just want to explain that you can keep yourselves muted. Um, if you have any questions, you can type them in the chat box, and we will discuss them at specific intervals during the workshop. Your facilitator today is Dr. Heather Phillips. Um, Heather is a postdoctoral research fellow currently working in the postgraduate program at CPUT. 2020 marks more than 40 years of teaching experience, 36 years of primary school teaching in foundation, intermediate, and senior phases, having held positions of deputy principal and principal. For the last 6 years, she's been lecturing in teacher education development, developing teacher professional knowledge, and in the B.Ed Honours course in inclusive education. She's part of a group initiative which provides literacy training, reading for meaning for teachers nationally, and also assists in the development of seminars for postgraduate students at CPUT, which are collaborative initiatives of the program. Heather, welcome. Thank you for bringing this wealth of experience with you and sharing that with us today. I know we're going to learn a lot. Over to you.
Thank you very, very much, Alet. I want to say a special thank you to Macmillan, and I absolutely love your mantra. I like to learn, or I like to know. I think it's marvelous. A very, very good afternoon
It's
to
absolutely
all
no
my
sound.
colleagues here. You can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I think
Okay, good.
someone else just needs to mute themselves.
Okay. Please mute your mics, colleagues. All right. Thank you very much for allowing me to share this platform with you. So, colleagues, you are teachers, and I know that at this time of the year, you are stressed and you don't know which way to turn. I have been there, done that for many, many years, and you're on the verge of writing your June examinations. But let's take today to sit back, to relax, and to learn to know. And I do hope that this workshop is going to give you a new perspective on how to develop reading in your classrooms. So we're going to start off with looking at what are the barriers to learning. And there are many different types of barriers that learners experience from a young age. And these barriers are generally categorized into these four groups. And if we look at the intrinsic barriers, and these come, I think, from within the child, and they are neurological, behavioral, emotional, and intellectual. And we look at examples like autism and ADHD and depression and all of those aspects. Those are very, very hard to deal with as a teacher on your own, and you're normally going to need help from outside. And then we have the extrinsic barriers. And these emanate from a lack of support from educators. Normally, we have assessment procedures that are not appropriate, and the curriculum is a bit inflexible because it doesn't allow the learner to learn at his or her own pace, etc. And you have a lot of experience with this. And then there are the systemic barriers. And the systemic barriers derive from a lack of basic material and equipment. There's a lack of reading material, etc. There's inadequate support provision, the inappropriate language, and we all deal with the language issues today. And there are also the issues of overcrowded classrooms. And then the societal barriers. And here we look at poverty and underachievement. And I like to say that those two should not really go hand in hand, because I don't believe that your circumstances will determine your achievement. But nevertheless, these are societal barriers that we have to be aware of. The lack of access to basic services and technology, the lack of early intervention programs. Teachers, I know this is a headache for you because you don't get the assistance and the support that you need. Natural disasters, and we have excellent experience of COVID-19 with pandemics, how it impacted our learners, and the learners with barriers were impacted even more. And then there's crime and the issue of negative attitudes. Now, these are the barriers that we have to deal with. These are the learners come to us with barriers of any of of these aspects, and we have to still be the teacher, and you have to still teach, and you still have to do what you are supposed to do. So I want to take you and just give you a little bit of background um, to where we are right now. Now, you all know the Pearls Progress in International Reading Literacy Study, which was done in 2016. Now, the Pearls focuses on, and I just want to get a pointer here, the focuses on these 4 reading skills. And they ask the questions based on these 4 levels, where the learner has to retrieve explicitly stated information. That means that the learner can go to the text and find the answer in the text. It's right there. My name is John. What is the boy's name? The boy's name is John. The information is right there. That is your level 1 skill. And then, of course, the level 2 skill is making straightforward inferences, and we will go through that skill later on. And the third skill is interpreting and integrating ideas and information. And the fourth skill is evaluating and examining content, language, and textual elements. And these are the 3 skills that our learners struggle with. And when we look at the results of 2016 for grade 4, can you please mute your mic, dear? If we look at the results of our grade 4s for South Africa, it is horrific, because this is what we're sitting with. 78% of the learners that participated in the Pearls literacy test in 2016 could not even, they did not even reach the first level. They could not even retrieve explicitly stated information. So this should ring alarm bells for us. And if we compare this to the international world, only 4% of their learners could not manage the first level of questioning. So these are really results that are quite scary. And as teachers, we are going to have to take a pledge that we want to change this. And then we go to the Western Cape, where the highest achieving Western Cape was the highest achieving province, yes, but it was still below, way below the average mean score of 500. So it does worry us a bit. The second slide shows us the rural schools, and that they actually performed the worst in our country. And the final slide, we can see that the best performing language, the best performing learners of language in the Western Cape was English, followed by Afrikaans, and we worry about the fact that isiXhosa and other languages are much lower down. So this is what we are confronted with, teachers. I hope you don't mind if I say that. I'm so used to saying that. And this is why we have to start right here. We have to look at the Pearl's questioning levels that are used, and we have to link it to our Bloom's taxonomy, and we will see that the first skill, retrieving explicitly stated information, is about remembering or recognizing or listing, because you can go to the text and you will find the answer. It's right there. The second skill, making straightforward inferences, is about reading the text, finding the clues, but also understanding. The answer is not stated there, but there are clues to the answer. The third one is interpreting and integrating ideas and information. And here the learner has to apply and analyze. And the fourth skill is evaluating and examining content, language, and textual elements. And here the learner needs to be able to evaluate and create. So we go on to the next slide, and we have a picture here of the late Professor Jean Chol from New Zealand. And she has been a guru in the literacy field for many years. And she talks about the development of reading skills from birth. So in the beginning, learners need these skills because they are learning to read. So they play with books and they learn that there are little black dots and squiggles on white pages, and that these squiggles really have some kind of meaning. So typically a child will first learn their name, and then they begin to put meaning to all these little squiggles, helped along with picture clues, until they become more confident and they are now ready to experiment with letters and words. And then we move from this part where they learn to read to the next phase where they now read in order to learn. And and I think from the intermediate phase onwards, this is the stage that they are at. They now have to start to read to learn. And now because at school they are doing history, geography, natural science, technology, where they not only have to decode words, but they have to understand the meaning. So to become a fluent reader, we must be able to decode words and we must be able to understand them. And this helps our learners to become fluent readers. And at this stage, this is where comprehension now becomes really important. Although I think that comprehension is important here too. But because here they are starting to read to learn, comprehending in those different subjects become even more important. And decoding is very important. So we're going to look at some of the reading skills. Basic reading skills, intermediate reading skills, and higher order reading skills. And we're going to also look at this special pre-primer where we have some pictures and we use symbols to tell a story. So what this requires is we need to now decode. In the first frame, the top left, there's a picture. And this frame hanging on the wall actually says waiting room. Now, when we're helping learners with decoding, this is a very good exercise to do. So they have to learn which symbols represent which letters. So now you give them an exercise to do and they have to decode the sentences. In this frame, we look at the first sentence says, are you sick? Are you sick? What does the second sentence say? Can you read the whole story? Now, if we were to do this, it would take a long time. But your children in your classrooms would have the time to do this, and they are understanding the value of decoding. So here's the full story. Are you sick? Are you waiting for the doctor? And the next picture says, we are not sick. We are waiting for our mother. The third frame says, are you sick? We are waiting for the doctor. And the fourth frame says, I am sick. I am waiting for the doctor. Is your mother sick? And the fifth frame says, our mother is not sick. We are waiting for lunch with mother. Your mother is not sick. Why are you waiting for your mother at the doctor's? Is your mother a nurse? And our mother is not a nurse. Our mother is the doctor. So this is a beautiful exercise to get the learners to learn the value of decoding, which is so important. So let's look at what skills were needed for learners to be able to read the story. What or how did you read the shapes and put meaning to them? What skills did we use? You can ask your students what they think, but if we are to do it together, we can look at this. They needed to know their phonics, right? Because they would not be able to decode if they didn't know the phonics. They needed to understand the sound symbol. They needed to understand where they needed to be able to recognize words and initial letters, and they needed to know the alphabet, and they needed to know eye movement, concepts of print, that they must read from left to right, and that they must read from top to bottom. And those are all your basic reading skills. The intermediate reading skills is they had pictures there, so they could use contextual clues and picture clues. They could predict, they had to comprehend. And the higher order thinking skills is the comprehension, the previewing. They skimmed, they scanned, and they had to infer and again predict. They read for information. So other skills that we bring to our reading is it's absolutely important because we need to understand that their life experiences play a big role. And that in reading, learners risk, and that we need to constantly motivate them so that they can develop their confidence and that they can have the correct attitudes and emotions and work together to develop their reading skills. So we move on from there and we look at the basic reading skills. So when we look at, there are three basic reading skills. We have the phonics, the basic reading skills or approaches to teaching reading skills. We have the phonic approach, we have the sight word approach, and we have the linguistic approach. Now let's go to the phonic approach and we look at letter recognition. So, for example, learners have to know their vowels and their consonants. And when we have one letter, we call it a graph. So, an A, it's a graph. When we join two letters, it becomes a digraph. So, if we're looking at something like O, A-W, O. When we're looking at three letters together to make a sound, we call it a trigraph. And when we, like we could say spr, right? And a quadgraph is four letters together that makes one sound, like shin, S-I-O-N. So your learners need to be able to recognize letters and they need to be able to know the sounds with one letter, with two letters, with three letters, with four letters. Those are the different the different graphs. Then, of course, we have the sight word approach. Now, for us that have been teaching for many years, we used to call this the look and say words. because these words are not phonetically regular words. You cannot sound it out. And the best way to teach children these words are to focus on the entire word, to put them on flashcards, to put them up in your classroom on your word walls, but also to flash them every day. Teachers, when we're looking at the sight word approach, the old notion of drilling comes into play. And I am I'm a believer that yes, we've got to do the linguistic approach, we've got to do all these approaches. But when we want our learners to know, we still have to drill. I still believe we have to drill our tables also. So finally, we get to the linguistic approach. And this is where word patterns occur. So we say the fat cat sat on the mat, and they identify the phonics in the words. So this is typical of basal readers, and because they focus on repetition. So these approaches should be used in your classrooms together. So let's look at the skills that we can use to help our children read difficult and long words. And we look at structural analysis. How are the words structured, and how can the structure of the word assist us in reading the word? We have what we call syllabification, and you can see the small word in there. We're speaking to syllables. We have prefixes and suffixes. We have smaller words in larger words. These can all just be done by looking at the structure of the word. Okay? But then we also have contextual analysis, where we predict and where we use picture cues. So let's look at syllabification. This is an amazing strategy that you should teach your children. They should understand that they should know this is a rule that they should know, they should learn. Now, what is syllabification? There are 3 rules for reading difficult words in syllabification. Firstly, now again, you see the learners need to know their vowels. You're going to take the word, you're going to underline all the vowels. So your learners must know what the vowels are. Then what you're going to teach them is to cut before one consonant. So they must know what consonants are. And you're going to teach them to cut between 2 consonants. Somebody's mic is on. Can you please put your mic off, dear? Thank you. All right. So let's look at an example. Teachers, you are going to love this, and this is going to help your learners to read. Thank you. All right. So again, the first rule is we underline all the vowels. So we took all the vowels and we underlined them. E, I, A, I, and O. Now we are left with the consonants. And remember the rule is cut before one consonant. So there's a T. So we're going to cut. There we're going to cut. We use the forward slash. There's a R and a M, and the third rule says cut between 2 consonants. So there are 2 consonants, so you cut between the 2 consonants. And then the M is N is another consonant, and you cut before the consonant. T is another consonant, so you cut before. So this is what we did. I'm going to teach your children to do this. Underline all the vowels. Now you go to the consonants, and you cut before a consonant, or you cut in between 2 consonants. And now your child attempts to read the word. So the child will say determination. And if the child sees it faster, determination. And he will understand that it's determination. And that is how your learners are going to be able to read these big words. Let's look at with the pandemic, the whole issue about ivermectin and how valuable and how good it was. Let's take the word ivermectin. And oops, now we have a problem here. Hide. Let's hide that. Okay. So again, the rule is underline all the vowels. So you underline I and E and E and I. Then the second rule says cut before one consonant. So V is the first consonant, I cut before it. The third rule says cut between two consonants. R and M are two consonants next to each other, so I have to separate, I have to cut between it. C and T are two consonants next to each other, so I have to cut between it. Now I read I, or learners may say I, the, mectin. Ivermectin. Ivermectin. Teachers, this is an unbelievably valuable um, um, strategy to teach your children. But it has to be taught. They need to know. I must underline all the vowels. I must cut before one consonant. I must cut between two consonants. Do you see how you are empowering your learners to be able to learn to read by themselves? But we have to skill them. And this is one of the skills that we can teach them. And they will be empowered. And their reading, the learning of their reading can be self-generated. Now we go to another structural analysis example where we say cut off prefixes and suffixes. And I know, teachers, you're going to say, yes, we know this. You know it. But what is really important here is that we teach our children how to do it. That we actually teach them to do it. That we say to them, take off the first part of the word, the N, and in grade 4 they know what prefixes and suffixes are. You take off the last part of the word, the ment. What is the word you have in between? That's the root word. The word is joy. So now when we add the prefix N, then it becomes enjoy. And when we add the suffix, it becomes enjoyment. Now, it's fine for us as teachers to know it, but unless we empower our learners and we actually sit down and teach them to do this and give them examples so that they can practice this strategy, then you're going to see the results. Only then. So, more structural analysis, finding smaller words in the bigger word. And if we have the name Amanda, what's the small word that we can see? Do you see a small word? Yes, I see the word man. So if we add together a and d, then it becomes Amanda. Again, arm your learners with these strategies so that they can learn to read on their own. Now we come to another strategy, which is contextual clues. And very often, we ourselves as readers are guilty of this. You read something so fast and you read the wrong word. Like many children, and this we've proven to ourselves. Many children would say, the brown house jumped over the fence. But you have to teach them, what's the contextual clue? Can a house jump? Right? No, the brown horse jumped over the fence. And you'll find lots of examples of this. Here's another one. The two boys are going home. Two boys, if they don't know the rule yet, um, um, are, but How does it sound? The two boys am going out? So use the contextual clues. Say there are two boys. And when there are two boys, do we use the word is or am, or do we use the word are? So we have to develop these skills within our learners. And I think what is more important um, is that we teach these clues. So let's look at picture cues. And uh, uh, um, there's a sentence that said, the bird escaped from the cage. Now, there's a picture to assist them, and they can see the birds flew out of the cage. So instead of saying the bird flew out of the cage or any other possibility, we want also them to develop their vocabulary. So the sentence here says the bird escaped from the cage, but your child may not know the word escaped. That is why we give a picture clue. It shows that the birds are leaving the cage. So again, let's look at the smaller word. They know this word. Where do you live? We live in Cape Town. Or we live in the Western Cape, right? So Cape is a word that many of them should know if they live here. Now we're adding S and a D. So it's escaped. It's a lot easier for them to learn. So, teachers, again, I want to reiterate what is very important here is that you actually teach the strategy. And here we have a poem that a learner wrote. It says independent strategies. When I get stuck on a word in a book, there are lots of things to do. I can do them all, please, by myself. I don't need any help from you. I can look at the picture to get a hint or think what the story's about. I can get my mouth ready to say the first letter, a kind of sounding out. I can chop the words into smaller parts, like on or in or lee, or find smaller words in compound words, like raincoat and bumblebee. I can think of a word that makes sense in that place, guess or say blank and read on until the sentence has reached its end. Then go back and try these on. Does it make sense? Can we say it that way? Does it look right to me? Chances are the right word will pop out like the sun in my own mind. Can't you see? If I've still thought of and tried out most of these things and I still do not know what to do, then I may turn around and ask for some help so that it can get me through. So, teachers, whether your learners are in grade 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, these are the strategies that you can teach them to ensure that they are able to take ownership of their learning of reading. Right? So, thank you very much. I want to know at this stage if there are any questions. Um, Alet, you're going to have to help me because I cannot see the screen.
Yes, at the
Or
moment I
any
don't see
comment.
any. I don't see anything in the chat box, but let's give someone who'd like to an opportunity. You can unmute yourself if you have a question.
I would like to ask a question.
Sure.
Go ahead.
I'm busy teaching a grade 2 learner, and the reason why I've entered for this meeting or whatever is that she struggles with reading out words. She sounds her words, and apparently in grade 2 they're not allowed to. Well, not allowed to, but they should not be sounding words. They should be able to read the words.
Mm.
So where does this fall in? I mean, maybe I'm on the wrong track.
Yeah, I think, yeah, these are really to help them to take ownership of their reading skills. But you see, this is for grade 4 upwards, because you can see the words are bigger. But if you are in the foundation phase still, you're teaching a learner in the foundation phase, and the learner is not able to read the word, then it means that the foundation has not been set well enough. So does the learner know all her phonic sounds?
Yes, she does she knows her phonic sounds, but sometimes she gets stuck, and then she will start sounding it again. But yeah, so I didn't think it was, I didn't know it was this just for grade 4.
Yeah, but
Um,
ma'am, let me explain something to you. Then it means that the learner is not ready yet. So you've got to be practicing that until she gets to a point where she doesn't need to sound out anymore. I mean, I have quite 6 grandchildren. And when they started school, I would look, they would learn, they would read. The first thing I would say is, if you can't read the word, sound it out. Because that's going to make it easier for you to read until they get to a point where they don't need that anymore. So that is probably why she is struggling, because she's not getting the opportunity to consolidate that part of her learning of reading. And I would say to you, let her sound it out and encourage her to read the entire word. Let her go back and read the sentence and then not sound it out the second time. And that in that way, she's going to progress. I hope that helps.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
All right. Thank you. So, if there are no other questions or comments, then I'd like to go on. We're looking at, again, I want to remind you of these levels of questioning and how because when your learners do their systemic testing, etc., etc., these are also the skills that they are using. They use these are the skills that they are assessing. Bloom's taxonomy, these are the skills that they are assessing. So we have to make sure that our children are able to do that. So good. Now I'm going to introduce you now to the first three higher order strategies. These are reading strategies. Now, I, I, I want to tell you that I've been in this game a very long time. And I've been a deputy principal and a principal for 20 years. And I have, in my experience, found that when learners reach grade 4, they go to grade 4, 5, 6, then teachers think they do not have to teach reading anymore. I want to tell you that that is a myth. Oh, I think you get, if I'm not mistaken, 40 minutes of reading time 3 times a week. I'm not sure. And if we are not to teach reading anymore, then what do we do in that time? So I want to give you some strategies that you can use in your reading periods that is going to move your child from that first level of, of thinking to incorporate the other 3 levels so that they can really develop their higher order reading and thinking skills. So these are the activities you can do in your reading lessons. And what is even more exciting is that it doesn't have to be from the English DBE book, but it can come from the science curriculum. It can come from the geography curriculum. It can come from the technology curriculum. So integration, and I know we fight because we say we don't have enough time. Integration is key, my colleagues. Integration. You can be doing language all day long while you are teaching science and geography and history, etc. And it's a skill that you have to develop. And I'm hoping that through these strategies you will be able to develop that skill. And the very first skill we're going to look at is what we call the my turn, your turn strategy. And it is the simplest of strategies. It is not anything uh, mind blowing. It is the simplest of strategies. But you focus on developing the correct questions. So this my turn, your turn strategy. You as the teacher, role model higher order thinking skills. You role model it. You demonstrate these skills by using texts. And these strategies, you know how we complain our kids don't talk, they don't engage. These strategies, I promise you, will get your learners actively engaged during reading. And what you need to understand is that good readers, they use strategies while they are reading in order for them to more deeply understand what they are reading. Even you as an adult, when you read unconsciously, you are using certain strategies to understand what you are reading. And that is why we have to teach our children these strategies. So we're going to focus on the following higher order reading skills. And what I want to say is, the teacher that just asked the question earlier is busy with grade 2 learner. Please, these skills can be applied from grade R right through to grade 12. You just adapt the texts. Okay? You adapt your texts. But all our learners up to grade 12 need to be able to answer those 4 higher or the different levels of questioning. So let's look at the higher order reading skills that we are going to do that I'm going to show you in this. Predicting. That's a higher order skill. Making connections. So they make connections either between the text and themselves, or they make a connection between the text and another text, or they make a connection between the text and the world, excuse me, and the problems in the world. Then there's also clarifying. Very often our children struggle. They cannot express themselves. They cannot clarify something. They cannot explain what they have read adequately. And then there's the whole issue of paraphrasing and summarizing. And I know right up to matric level, they struggle with paraphrasing and summarizing. And then also inference, which is a very important skill. So I want you to listen to this strategy. I'm just going to explain in the first part. I'm going to take a grade 4 text, which is about the river in rabbits, and you have done this text already, and that's why I'm using it, because I'm thinking if you are going to use a text that the child already knows to a degree, the child has seen it, it's going to be so much easier for you to use this strategy. And once they get to understand the strategy, you can take new texts. So first of all, and remember, those teachers of grade 7, 8, and 9, please don't see this as a grade 4 strategy, because it is not. I want you to just think of your own texts that you use and try and adapt it. So, what is important here is that you're going to model. So, when you start, you are going to actually, I normally take my hand and I put it on my chest and I say, my turn. This alerts the learners to the fact that the teacher is going to say something now. It's her turn to speak, but she's going to say something important and I have to listen. So, part of this is also helping you with organization in your classroom. So, I'm going to say, my turn. And I show the picture and I say, I wonder what the story will be about. Now, this you can do in grade 12. You can have an Earth Day picture and say, I wonder what this picture tells me about what we are going to talk about. Then I look at the learners and I show with my hands, with a hand gesture, and I say, your turn. And then they raise their hands and you can give them opportunities to answer. What do they think the story is about? And they may talk about the story is about farming, or the story is about a family of rabbits, or the story is about rabbits living. As you go higher, the kind of answers will differ. Here we have rabbits living in an area, and we know that rabbits will settle along riverbeds because there's water available, etc. But you're getting your learners to predict, which is a higher order thinking skill. Now we go to the next one. Now remember, this is a reading lesson. So we get the kids to read the information. One child to read. And if I read it, I'm going to say riverine rabbits are found only in South Africa in the Karoo. Unfortunately, they are our most threatened mammals. They are in danger of disappearing forever. So I decided I want to do a connecting question here. And so I've developed this question. So in my class, I'm going to say, my turn. The story says that the Karoo is in South Africa. I wonder if the Karoo is close to or far away from your house. And why? Give me a reason for your answer. Now, what am I expecting the child to do? I want the child to connect the Karoo with his previous knowledge. Has he heard about the Karoo before? Does he know that the Karoo is not close to our homes, that it's a semi-desert area, etc., etc., so they can connect it to their own background knowledge, or they could connect it to something they've already read about rabbits or about the Karoo, etc. So once I've asked the question, I'm saying the story says that the Karoo is in South Africa. I wonder if the Karoo is close to or far away from your house. Then I say your turn. So I give the learners an opportunity. And then there's also the picture clues. They can see there are no houses close by. It is not a suburban area. It looks more rural. So they would be able to use those picture clues and make those connections. But that is a higher order thinking skill for the child to be able to make those connections and not just look at what is put there in the text. Then next we can say, again, it's a reading lesson. Remember, you are reading, it's your reading lesson. So another learner can read and we say, riverine rabbits live along along rivers in the Karoo. The soil there allows them to dig burrows. Riverine rabbits need burrows to raise their babies, which are tiny when they are born, just a bit bigger than a matchbox. And the babies are called kittens. Now I'm going to do an inference question. An inference means they can look at the text, they're going to find a clue, but they won't find the answer. They have to use their own background knowledge to add it to that clue and give an answer. So I'm going to say my turn, and you're going to have all your learners look at you, and I'm going to say, what does the author mean to raise their babies? Your turn. So now the learners are going to look at the text again, and they're going to see raise their babies. And when they were born, they were tiny. That's going to give them a clue, right? So they may say, and they also know that in their own homes, people talk about raising children, right? So that their own background knowledge is linked to that little clue there, and they will give their suggestions. I think what is very important, oopsie, so sorry. Okay, so now we go to the next part of and this is how it goes on. Some farmers have ploughed up the land next to the rivers. So the bushes and shrubs riverine rabbits need to have been destroyed. There are fewer and fewer places where these rabbits can live and look after their kittens. My turn. Why can the rabbits not have their babies next to the rivers in the Karoo? Ha! Clarification. So the learner is going to have to really look at the text and say, okay, um, the farmers plow, and there's a picture in the picture, it's a picture clue too. They plow up there. If the rabbits are going to have their babies there, They're going to be harmed. So they have to give an explanation. It's easier, but they have to explain it. They have to clarify that, which is a higher order thinking skill. And let's look at the last one. The South African Wildlife Society is trying to save the riverine rabbits. Some farmers in the Karoo have agreed to protect the rabbits on their farms. There's also a breeding program at De Wit Nature Reserve. De Wilt. There they breed the rabbits in safety. They hope to return these rabbits to the Karoo where they belong. And I say, my turn. Can you say why the riverine rabbits are threatened animals? And they have to paraphrase and summarize. So they have to really think about everything that has been said. They are disappearing, tells us that they are threatened. The fact that they cannot have their babies there tells us that they are threatened. So all through this piece, they will have to paraphrase and they will have to summarize the aspects that are discussed regarding the, the rabbit as a threatened species. So teachers, here are your higher order thinking skills. You can take any piece. You can take a piece from your science book, etc. Anything, but it is going to help you to get your learners to think at a different level. So let's look at the benefits. Number one, it develops listening capacity. Aren't we all with our arms up in the air saying our kids do not listen? They do not listen because they have not been trained to listen. This is an activity or strategy that trains your learners to listen. So they're going to be developing that listening capacity. It also helps them to think, to link what they know and rephrase it and give it over to somebody else so that it can be understood. So you think about what you know and you read the text and you think about what you know and you have to add in the words you understand in order to clarify for somebody else. It develops the ability to ask questions to deepen your understanding of what is being discussed. Every time you ask a question, the child has to really think about that question. And therefore, they learn to develop questions in that way. And they can only learn to develop the question in that way if they know they've been trained on how to answer that question. So we develop capacity to articulate an idea and to use new terminologies. And we develop the child learns that, you know what? I am good. That source of power is in each learner because they are all going to want to answer those questions. And when they answer those questions, teachers, I think this is very important, that you remain non-judgmental, that you do not say, no, I don't think that is so, that you allow them to give their opinions and that you'll teach them that their opinions matter. What they think matters. If they are off the track, they are going to hear the other responses. And eventually they will realize, no, but I don't think it's that. I'm going to agree with one of the learners that whose response was different. So you develop a learning environment in which all students, you expect them to participate, and where scaffolding happens as they learn, as they listen to responses from other learners. So they develop confidence. And eventually your shyest child will see when the learners answer the questions, teacher doesn't shout at them or say they're wrong or not. Teacher just says, thank you for that contribution. Or teacher says, I appreciate that answer. And they are going to develop that confidence. And pretty soon you're going to see their hands going up, ready to give you an answer. So you will find that at least 50% of your students will be talking in any given lesson that is done like this. Also, it's an advantage. It can be used quickly once you, as the teacher, are fully, once you have become so used to those various higher order thinking skills, it's going to come to you as you're reading. You'll be able to, in anything they do, frequently come up with a higher order question and say, can you clarify that for me, please? Or can you predict what is going to happen at any grade level? So students really do improve at this over time. And it keeps sense making at the center of the lesson. When the right answer surfaces, that is only the beginning of the conversation, not the end of it. Because when the right answer surfaces, other learners are also going to contribute. So now I would like to do this with you. And I don't know if Alet can randomly choose or ask 4 people, just 4 teachers, to participate in this activity. Is it possible, Alet?
Yeah, I can, or we can ask volunteers. Okay, let me ask Anisha
Yeah.
Kasim, um, Bashira Jusa, Donna Pinkham, and Kakonango. I can't see the whole surname. Gunyana.
Are they
Sorry,
prepared
Gunyama.
to work with me?
No, that's what I'm asking. I'm about to ask now.
It's very simple. You just have to be a grade 6 learner or something and speak from their perspective and give some
Okay,
wrong answers as well.
okay, this is Bashira Joseph. It's fine on my side.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Bashira. Anybody else like to help us out quickly?
Anisa Kasim, are you willing to help us?
Don't be shy, teachers.
I will help.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you. You are awesome.
We need 2
Okay.
more.
Yeah, oh, one more is fine.
Okay.
I just want to demonstrate so that the
Okay.
teachers can understand. So, yeah, teachers, thank you very, very much. I'm going to give you a chocolate later. I'll show you the picture. So you can keep your mics on. You can keep your mics on and you can just answer, right? So we're busy with habitats and adaptations. Now, prior to this, I showed the learners a very short video on habitats and adaptations. So now I'm showing this picture. I did a PowerPoint presentation and I'm saying to the class, right, my turn. I wonder what this lesson is really about. I think it has to do with animals and plants. What do you think this lesson is about? Your turn,
I would
Bashira?
say it's about, I would say it's about where animals live.
Oh, lovely, Bashira. Anybody else?
I would have said it's about wildlife.
Awesome. That's fabulous. In the last learner that we have? Okay, let's go on because time is. So that was a predicting question, right? Now, so, and of course, we are reading. Either the teacher reads or the learner. You can choose 1 or 2 learners to read. What is a habitat and what does it mean? A habitat is a place where an animal or plant lives. A habitat must provide animals with the things they need to survive. My turn. The teacher says that a habitat must provide an animal with all the things they need in order for them to survive. Can you explain what it is that animals and plants need to survive? Your turn.
Oh, food, sunlight, air, water.
Oh, lovely. Anybody else?
I'll be the typical learner and say, ma'am, I was going to say what she said.
Yes. Ah, wow. Thank you. So they get to clarify. And remember, we're not giving any information here. So they're using their background knowledge, right? So the next one says, what is adaptation and what does it mean? Adaptation is a process of change. When an animal or plant adapts their characteristics so that it is able to survive in its environment or its habitat. My turn. I am thinking about the word adaptation. I wonder what it means because I know I have had to adapt to a new way of teaching during COVID-19. Have you ever needed to adapt yourself to fit into a certain situation? Your turn.
Gosh, that's a difficult one. I think for a grade 6 learner, you're asking them basically when do they have to change to fit into the environment.
Yes,
So I
yes.
think it's difficult for them to answer something like that.
When they came
Maybe
into grade 6 for the first time.
Maybe a
Yes,
new
and they could also say how they have to change when they go into the sports field or when they're going to
Yeah,
assembly, for example, or to play a sports match, something like that.
absolutely. They are the masters of adaptation during COVID, right? So thank you. That's fantastic. So they have to make the connections. So you see how they can make the connection with COVID times or going into a new grade or those kinds of things. But let me tell you, some of your learners may struggle. But when they hear the responses of others, they're going to think it's going to open up their minds and they're going to learn about how to connect. And that is what we need. That is higher order thinking. Okay, so why must plants and animals adapt? In the Arctic Circle, the winters are extremely cold. In order for animals to survive through the very, very cold winters, animals and plants have to adapt. A good example of an animal that has adapted well to the very cold Arctic winters is the polar bear. My turn. On a cold winter's day, I have to adapt to the cold by wearing very warm, thick clothing. How do you think the polar bear adapts to its very cold habitat? Your turn.
It's a really thick fur, I think.
Good. Anybody else?
Yeah, I think I'll be the grade 6 learner and go maybe eat lots of food and hide,
Yes.
try to find
Good.
shelter.
Good. And remember, you must take note. I am not saying no, or I'm not saying no. That's not. I'm just saying good. I'm saying wow. Thank you for your answer. Right? You are now getting your learners to become more confident as they go through this process, and they have to infer here. Right? They have to infer. They can infer from my answer. I said I put on warm clothing. So they can look at the polar bear. The picture cue is he's got very, very thick, uh, uh, um, very, very thick fur. And that does help him, right? And also they can infer and say, the second teacher answered, they eat a lot. So it keeps them warm. They just see that the body is very big, but they are making an inference. Okay? Right. Grassland habitat. An example of an animal that lives in grasslands is the elephant. My turn. Look carefully at the elephant and tell me how the elephant adapts to living in grassland areas. Your turn.
Gosh. Can I keep my hand down for this one, teacher?
Me too.
Okay,
I'm
let's look
thinking
at its leg.
the
Let's look at
tusks.
its paw.
No eye contact with the teacher here. We'll just look down.
Oh, I have some clever children in my class today. Okay, so if your learners really don't know, then you can help them. The ears play a big role. The paws play a big role. The trunk plays a big role, etc. But we're not going to give the information now. We're doing the strategy. When you are going to do your input on adaptation in science, all those will come. But we want them to really think. And I'm telling you, they're going to come up with answers. They will. I promise you, I've done this enough times to know that they will. It's going to be strange answers, but we welcome an answer because it means that they are thinking. How do plants adapt to their environment? Desert plants are green and moist and have prickly thorns on its edges. My turn. How do you think, just by looking at the leaves of the desert plant, do they adapt to their hot, dry habitat? Your turn.
I think they need to find a way to retain um, water as such. So because they don't have water all the time, so they need to find certain ways to keep the little water that they do get, which will help them to grow.
Wow.
And maybe something to protect them from the sunlight or the harsh conditions, maybe of the
Brilliant.
sunlight.
Anybody else? Thank you.
What she said.
Um, Look at the picture clues. But okay, let's go on. We're going to waste too much time. They have to infer. They have to infer from this information. It's green, which means it has water. Even though it's in a dry habitat, it has water. It's moist. That tells us there's water there. They have prickly thorns, which tells us that they protect themselves against animals coming to eat them for their water. Right? Anyway, let's go on. Okay, so a debriefing. What, in your opinion, are the strengths of this strategy after we've done it now? So, teachers, I need you to participate now. Just give off the cuff, just unmute and just say what you think. Do you like this strategy? Do you think it will work in your class? Go
I
ahead.
think it I think it will help with vocabulary and getting everyone talking.
Yes, absolutely. Anybody else? Thank you.
I think it will help the children to get excited about reading.
Ah, I love that. I love that. You see, the minute you do something differently, you get their attention, right? And it'll be more exciting. Once they learn the strategy and they understand that they have an opinion, that they can be the source of information. Ha! Their confidence boosts and they are going to work with you on this. Anybody else? No more? Oopsie. What did I just do now? Okay. What challenges do you think you could experience with this? Just unmute and speak, ladies and gentlemen. I need to hear your voices. Nobody? We're
Maybe
running out of time.
if learners are
Yes.
not confident or too shy to
Yeah.
answer,
Do you think eventually they will want to answer? They will feel they will develop that confidence
I
if you
think
do the
so, yeah.
strategy enough?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you, teachers. Okay. So we're going to go on to the next one, and I wanted to tell you about inference and how we actually teach this skill. It is a very difficult skill. I know there was some work done, and they questioned learners on inference, and learners do not know. What is very important is that your learner must know this word. They're not too young. Your learners must know what an inference is. They must know how to infer. And if they know the word and they understand, then you're not going to have a problem with this higher order thinking skills. And what is inference? It's the process of making an educated guess. So you look at the text will always provide a clue. And you look at your own understanding of the world and you add it to that text and you come up with an inference. So, in order to inference, these are the things that we need. We need vocabulary and background knowledge, grammar and cohesive ties, text structure and comprehension monitoring. All of these tie into each other. And I don't want to go into that, it's a bit too complicated. But making an inference is basically this. And I apologize, I made this slide, this picture too big, and then it went a bit funny. So readers use story clues and they use what they know. Those are the two things. The text clue, you find the clue in the book. You think about what you know about it, and that gives you an inference. So let's look at one example. Here we've got a little picture, and it says the boy is kicking leaves. That's all you've got. The boy is kicking leaves and a picture. So I'm asking, what time of year could it be? Can anybody tell me? You have to make an inference now because the answer is not there. It doesn't tell you what time of the year it is. So you have to infer. So you're going to use the clue that you have here and your own background knowledge, and you're going to give me an answer. Can somebody answer that for me, please? Let's look at the picture clue.
Autumn.
It's
Autumn.
winter. Autumn.
Autumn, winter. Okay. Why do you say autumn?
Because the leaves fall down in autumn.
There we go. So remember, you looked at the picture and you saw the brown leaves. Then you took your own background knowledge. The leaves are brown and they fall down from the tree. And you realize that this must be autumn. So you have made an inference. You have made an inference. The second teacher that said winter, I think she probably used the clue of how he was dressed with rain boots on. So the dress and her own background knowledge of when she dresses in this way tells her it's very, very cold. So it could be autumn or winter. But that is how you infer. That's an inference. Um, let's look at how is the boy feeling? Now this text says the boy is kicking leaves. We look at the boy. How is the boy feeling? You have to infer. You have to make an inference now. Can somebody answer me? Can somebody make that inference for me?
He could be feeling frustrated and releasing anger.
Good. Why do you say that? You're looking at the boy is kicking the leaves. Now, we normally kick balls and things. We're looking at the way he looks here. And it does, and we infer that he is kicking the leaves and he's not looking very happy because he's frustrated or angry about something. Perfect. That's a beautiful inference. Um, and there are many of these examples. And you can go through it in your own time. But that is what we've got to teach our children. They've got to take the clue from either the text or the picture, and they've got to add their own background knowledge in order for them to make an inference. Fabulous. This is also the way you can do it. It says I say and so. Um, here This is the text or the question. The question says, at dawn, we will go for a picnic. What food will I put in my basket? Now, it says at dawn. Wonder what is meant by the word dawn. I understand that we will go for a meal because we're going to have food in our basket. So now, that's what the text gives us. Now, what do you know? You know, my granny always used to tell me that the fishermen go out at dawn. And I know that the fishermen only go out very early in the morning. So that means that this picnic is going to happen very early in the morning. And so I suggest that dawn is early in the morning. Therefore, I suggest I will put tea and coffee in my basket with a croissant and jam. Right? So you can use the it says, I say, and so. The it says is what the text says. I say is your background knowledge. And so, what do you infer? Fabulous examples. Now, let's look at inference across the curriculum. And I found this story. It says, Tortoise was thinking about the beautiful dream he had when suddenly Lion, who was always rushing, tripped over him. Ow! He shouted. Watch where you are going. Sorry, said Tortoise. I'm going to see the wise one. I had an amazing dream. I'm sure it was a slow dream, shouted Lion, and he grumbled. Tortoise was telling him about the dream, but Lion shouted, I'll go. You are too slow. There's a picture also. Remember, our children must use the text clues and picture clues. And this right up to grade 12. Describe the two characters in the story. Or give me the characteristics of those characters. And this is what our kids struggle with. If you give them this in grade 4 or in grade 8, they will struggle with this. So they must learn to infer. So let's look how we infer. This, he is very proud, and this is my background knowledge. I'm saying he's very proud. And why am I saying that? I go to the picture clue, and he's standing up there like a proud man, a proud lion, right? I use the picture clue. But I also say it's because of the way he stands up tall and he looks down at Tortoise. So I'm saying one of his character traits is that he is very proud, and I have to justify it. Then I also say he is very impatient. And why do I say impatient? Now remember, he is very impatient. That is my background knowledge. Because my mom always says to me, stop being so impatient when I keep on hassling her for something. And I'm saying he's impatient because he rushes around all the time. And that comes from the text. He's always in a hurry. He's always rushing. Okay? Then I'm going to also say another character trait because I've experienced it. He is bossy. And why? Because I'm inferring from this that he's being rude to Tortoise and he's very angry. Right? So there I've made an inference. Now we can do the same thing with Tortoise. Can any of you give me one character trait of Tortoise, please? Anybody?
Slow.
Yes, he's very slow and he takes his own time. So what would be the character trait? He
He's
is,
timid.
excuse me, he is a
He's
calm
timid.
person. He's timid, he's calm. Why do we say that? He does everything on his own time and he does not get angry very quickly. Okay, so that is how we can go on, etc. Now let's look at inference in science. Science teachers spend time helping students develop the observation skills, right? That is key. If you're not teaching your children, if you're not sharpening their observation skills, then you're not teaching a science lesson. Now, inference and observations are very closely related. Observation is what you see, inference is the assumption that you make of what has been seen. So you can start out providing simple observation. You can write down the observation is the grass on the playground is wet. So if the grass on the playground is wet, what can I infer? Anybody?
That it was raining.
It was raining. Ha! Brilliant. What else? If it wasn't raining, what can I infer?
They watered the garden. They watered it.
We think alike, eh? The sprinkler was on. And if the sprinkler wasn't on and it wasn't raining, what can I infer? That it could have been early in the morning and the morning dew was still on the grass. Do you see how we can teach our children higher order reading and thinking skills in your science lesson? So your 40 minutes of reading, you can be catching up with your science and integrating it with your reading. Because your learners are going to read the texts, you're going to ask the higher order questions. Fantastic. Okay. So I think we can just take a 1 minute break. If you don't mind, Alet, I just need to run to the ladies
Yes,
and
yes.
then we can go on. Just take a breather,
Let's
teachers.
make it a
Think of
three
any,
minute break.
yeah, okay. Think of any questions you may have for me. Thank you.
Thanks.
Please let me know when our 3 minutes are up, dear.
But there's still 1 minute left.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we can continue.
Thank you, teachers. Welcome back. This last of the 3 activities I want to do. I think we're going to run out of time, so we have to move a little faster. This is my all-time favorite reading strategy, and it's called the anticipation guide. Now, the anticipation guide is where we ask a set of very controversial, we make, we make controversial statements, and we ask our learners to respond to them and by activating their prior knowledge. So what we do is we work in small groups, right? Because students learn from each other while they provide their own opinions about the statements. We set a clear purpose for our learning, and the statements need to be very carefully written so that they stimulate and agitate the students' curiosity about whatever topic you are working with. And in that way, we really challenge their prior knowledge. So I'm going to use the Riverine Rabbits again, just because we know the text and it will be a lot easier. So we have this text, we have the story, we have read the story. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to develop a activity. We have got place for 4 or 5 names at the top. And these are all the statements that I'm going to put in here based on the story or inferred from the story. And what we have in each column is an A, which is for agree, and a D, which is for disagree. Now, teachers, it is important that learners give their opinions. We have to learn, they have to learn that we value what and how they think. It's very, very important. So I just want those 3 teachers again to help me with this, and I want to show you how it's done. So you're going to divide your class into groups of 4 or 5, whatever that may be, and each learner in the group gets one of these. So if you have 4 learners, what they're going to do is they're going to write their names in here. I just have to do this. Um, they're going to write their name. Oopsie. They're going to write their names in here. So, for example, I'm going to put Bashira's name in here. Right? Sorry for that. So difficult to work in the PowerPoint. Oh, Lord. Okay. Let's make it smaller. Right. There we go. So Bashira's name is there. All the other names will go in there. That is one group. So they are going to sit with the text. Right? Or, no, sorry. The pre-reading. You're going to have your entire class and you're going to read this text. So you're going to read the text to the whole class. That's your pre-reading. This is your during reading activity. So what you're going to do is you're going to say to the learners, right, sit in a group. One person decides to ask the questions. And okay, so we're going to make the statements. So I want those 3 teachers to please contribute now. The first statement I make is, rabbits are only found in the Karoo. Bashira, now they're going to do it in the class. Do you agree or do you disagree?
Disagree.
So you disagree. So I'm going to say, right, Bashira disagrees. But Bashira, why do you disagree? You cannot take an answer without giving an explanation.
Because I've seen rabbits in other places.
Good, good. What's the next teacher's name? Do you agree or do you disagree?
I disagree.
You disagree. Good. Why do you disagree, dear?
Because I have a rabbit in my garden.
Ah, that's fantastic. And that's going to spark a lot of discussion later on. And the third teacher, do you agree or disagree? Okay. What you could also write here is rabbits are found all over the world. Then you're going to get a more controversial response from your learners, right? Doesn't matter what the statement is. You want to get them to think, to give an opinion, and to justify their opinion. This is a fantastic. And what I'm going to do is I taught this lesson in a grade 4 class. And I want you to just watch the video for me quickly, please, if you don't mind. Let me just put it on. Right. Why can I not live in the tree? Why? Oh, I invited you to my birthday party. I told you I live in the big tree next to the police station. But you have a problem with that. Why do you have a problem with that? Yes, my sweetie pie.
Vegan stuff gonna go.
What's that?
A fish, a lamb, a
But why can't I sleep on the branch?
yeah. But it's not
Yes, what do you say?
There's no food and snacks.
There's no food and snacks to me. Okay, can't I eat the leaf? Okay. Now what do you say at the back, Oka?
Because that's not the habitat that the human should live in.
That's not the habitat for a human. You are. Let us go. I want you to open up to page 33 and we're going to read about habitats. Quickly. I'm going to read and you can follow. Some live above the water, such as ducks and insects. Others live in the area surrounding the river, such as frogs and many kinds of birds. The animals find food in their habitat. Plants grow in the water and on the riverbanks, and some animals eat these plants, for example, fish and hippos. Birds like kingfishers catch fish that live in the river. Other animals like crocodiles eat animals that come to the riverbank to drink water. Some animals like frogs and fish lay their eggs in the water. Now let's look at the last habitat we're going to do, and that's sea habitats. Many different. I'm going to see what you think. And we're going to do an anticipation guide. We've done anticipation guide before. Oh, yeah. Okay, it doesn't matter. Sit down, it's fine. Keep your social distance. Right. Are you ready to start? The rest of it, you can write your names in there. Make sure you got all your names in. While we wait.
I got Chinese. Because animals can't bear. An eagle that attacked in the sky. Color, because the food is down and the food is up in the air, up in the food. I disagree on this.
Forest habitats get rain all year round. Who agreed with that statement? Why did you agree with that statement?
Because for a plant, a tree, or any kind of thing to survive against sunlight, air, water, and wind.
Wow, okay.
To survive, and you don't know how trees grow. They usually get water at the rains, but you don't feel the rain because the trees are so together that
Ah, brilliant boy. Okay, why did you agree?
because without rain,
Hold on your mask a little so we can hear.
without rain, they can't survive so long and they can't drink so much.
Clever boy. Why did you agree? Did you agree? You didn't. So why did you disagree?
I disagree because only the rainforest is rain.
Oh, I see. Who else disagreed? What do you say? Why did you disagree?
I disagree because if the plants get too much water, then they can die. They get too much water.
Okay, that's interesting. Let's look at the third one.
Oopsie. Are you still there, teachers? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, I'm still
Thank
here.
you. So, you know that the camera puts on 5 kilos. I'm not so fat. Okay, let's get on. Um, you see how the kids are excited and they give you much more information than you anticipate. And you and that was the first time I borrowed that class. It's a grade 4 class. My granddaughter's in that class, and the parents all signed consent letters to have this video made. So they it's the first time that they do an anticipation guide, but they got right into it because it was something new. Now I want to show you other examples of anticipation guides. Here you can, for the grade 4s, maybe, if it's more difficult statements, then you can have just for variation, the smiley face or the sad face, etc. And this is a science lesson. Then we go here to the, let me just do this. We go here to the history lesson, I think. I'm not sure. Okay. So now what you can do here is you can give your students the anticipation guides before you teach the lesson to assess their previous knowledge. They can agree and disagree and give reasons. Then you can teach the lesson. Then they can do the after reading exercise. And then you can see and you can evaluate your own teaching in this way. You can see, what did the kids think before? After teaching the lesson, did they learn? How much did they really learn? Same here in a maths lesson. Polygons are baby frogs. Before you teach it, let them give their background knowledge. After you teach the lesson, you can do this. But otherwise, you can just do the agree and the disagree. It is a fabulous strategy. And you will only see the value of the strategy once you do it in your classroom. So when you're done, you see, so you start off with a reading, Then you start off with the actual activity, and at the end, you do the after reading, which is you now question the children. So they hear each other's responses. And it's amazing because this is where they learn. While you are doing the feedback, this is where they learn. And then you can ask your kids, what did you like about this activity? What did you learn from this activity? When you were giving your opinions, did you ever change your mind after hearing what your friend said? And the teacher could follow up with the comprehension activity, and the children will be a lot more equipped to answer those questions. Now, teachers, we have the different levels of questions. Today, we're just going to do the two. We have to teach our children. We have to teach them these levels of questioning. They must understand that to retrieve explicitly stated information means the answer is in the text. They must understand that to make an inference, they have to use a text clue and their own background knowledge and come up with an answer. So and you can give them this activity. You ask them, where do the riverine rabbits live? And you give them the answer. They live near rivers in the Karoo. So they must decide what kind of question this is. So can you tell me what kind of question this is? 1, 2, 3, or 4? Anybody?
1.
1, absolutely, because they tell us that the riverine rabbits live in the Karoo in the text. The second question is, I wonder what the author means to raise their babies. The mother looks after the babies till they are grown up. What kind of question is this? Anybody? I'm waiting, teachers, just somebody. Which level question is this? Okay, I will tell you it's a level 2. You have to make inferences because they are told in the text that they are babies and they're very tiny, etc. And you have to use your own background knowledge about raising them to know that she looks after the babies till they are grown up. Now, you tell me if your learners are able to identify what kind of question it is. Don't you think they are able to answer the question correctly? They know how that thinking must occur. So, right up to grade 12 teachers, this is what is important. If the learners understand the levels of questioning, they will know what is expected of them and they will know how to answer the question. And that is what we need for our critical comprehension skills. I cannot do interpret and integrate and evaluate. That's maybe for the next workshop because the time is too limited. So thank you. Now I'm going to do 3 more, and the next 3 is focused on the higher grades. And I want to introduce you to the feature matrix, which I think is another amazing. Okay, but before we do that, I'm sorry. I want you to understand why it is important that we teach them the different levels of questioning. Can somebody read this for me, please? Rashida, do you mind reading this for me, my dear? Thank you. Or anybody else? Just unmute and go ahead.
It was a long, wipery day, and the loopery was whomping, which made the turtle feel moopy. It slooped sleepily because it was lucky of the whingy, which was wimpy. Then the turket slumped. It walked over the trimble, which made the whingy crappy.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you. Excellent reading. Question number 1. What was the day like? Who can give me an answer, please? I need
It
an
was a
answer.
long, wipery day.
Fabulous. Question number 2. Why was the Thacket feeling moopy?
The Lupri was wamping.
Fantastic. Number 3. Why did the Thicket sloop trippily?
Because it was lucky of the whingy. which was Wimpy.
Fabulous. Where did the thicket whop?
Over the trimple.
Fantastic. How did the wingy feel when the thicket whopped over the trimple?
Crappy.
Fabulous. Now I want you to understand one thing, teachers. This child would have gotten 10 out of 10 full marks for comprehension. But it made no sense. It made absolutely no sense. Now, this is what happens when we stick to level 1 questions. These were all level 1 questions. They could find the answer in the text. So they don't have to understand. Now, if I transpose that, I say it was a hot human day and the sun was scorching, which made the rabbit feel weary. It moved quickly because it was scared of the fox, which was hungry. Then the rabbit fled. It jumped over the fence, which made the fox angry. What was the weather like? Somebody give an answer quickly.
Hot and humid.
Yes,
Humid.
good. Why was the rabbit feeling weary?
Because of
Because it was
the
hot.
heat and the humid day.
There we go. Why did the rabbit move quickly?
Just scared of the fox, which was
There we
hungry.
go. Where did the rabbit jump, or how did the rabbit get away?
Jumped over the fence.
Over the
Good.
fence.
And the next one, how did the fox react when the rabbit jumped over the fence?
So angry.
Fox was
Yes.
angry.
What I'm trying to show you is that when we ask only level 1 questions, which we did here,
Mm.
there is no comprehension happening. Do you agree with
Mm.
me?
Yeah.
Absolutely no comprehension. It's
Mm.
like me. I can read Arabic fluently, but I don't understand what I'm reading. And this is the problem that we have in our classrooms, especially when our learners are learning, not learning in their mother tongue.
Mm.
We can read the words, but we do not understand. So unless we move to our second, third, and fourth level questions, we are actually just wasting our time. And that is not what we want. Right? So I hope this has really made you more aware of the importance of comprehension skills and critical comprehension skills. Now, this is also a fantastic strategy. A feature matrix is it's a simple strategy. You can use it as a class activity. You can use it as an assessment technique. And it really does ask the child to do higher order thinking. And in this example, you can see they had to make a comparison between a series circuit and a parallel circuit. Right? The things that were the same is both needed an energy source and both needed wires. But
Mm.
the other things differ. So I want to give you an example, which is for Earth Day for grade 8s for next term, because you are going into exam now. And I found the story Code Blue in the WCED on one of their sites. And it's a story that tells us about um, what we are experiencing right now. Is there someone that can read this for me quickly, please? Anybody? Okay, I'll start. Throughout humans' existence on Earth, we have made our home on the coasts of oceans, depending on its resources for food and transportation. The ocean makes up 70% of the Earth's surface, making it the primary reservoir of water on Earth's surface. It is the largest of the three marine biomes, is teeming with wildlife, and is responsible for much of our climate patterns. The oceans were filled with diverse ecosystems of corals, invertebrates, fish, and mammals, all relying on each other in interconnected food webs. However, the ocean has changed a lot since 1500, and this is the story of those changes. So, prior to prior to 1500, it was a beautiful resource, right? Then we've got 100 years passed by, and they tell us what happened in the ocean and how the new technologies in commercial whaling came across, etc. Then in the 1700s, more change occurred. They decimated whale populations worldwide. There was an international moratorium on commercial whaling. I'm not reading it because it's going to take too long. And then in the 1800s, what happened after that? The world population reached 1 billion. So they had to increase the crop yields to feed the population. Chemical fertilizers were used. And these could harm marine ecosystems and develop dead zones, which is just a waste of the resources. And then, of course, in the 19th century, burning coal was a source of mercury poisoning. Humans are susceptible to illnesses if they eat fish with high mercury content. And we ask a question, what has changed about the oceans from 1500 to 1850? How have humans been helped or hurt by these changes? Um, and we go on to the 1900s and how even more harm is being done. Maritime technology was developed. Fishing technologies to help feed 3 billion people on the planet caused severe overfishing. Um, Trawling, a technique that scrapes the seafloor with large nets, would catch anything and everything. And we look at in the 2017 onwards, 2/3 of the world's fishing were being fished and overfishing, depleting the fish stocks. We were produced in 1960. We were producing enough fish to provide our growing population. Aquaculture, or raising fish in pens as you would cows or chickens, became a growing industry. We cleared mangrove forests to create room for aquaculture. The oceans and our water was polluted, endangering our public health as well as our food sources. 1987, there was toxic substances in the water killed marine birds. They also choked and consumed plastic. Blah, blah, blah. And we go on. And we sit with this fantastic piece of reading um, that speaks about how we should save our planet. And it's part of the life orientation third term, life orientation grade 8. Now, teachers, we have all of this wonderful information. So, firstly, you're going to get your learners to read the information. They can read it in pairs, whatever it might be. You can read it, it can be reading aloud, and then going in pairs to scan and skim through it again, etc. And then we develop a feature matrix. And before I show you the feature matrix, I want to show you that here you can decide which words you're going to use. To identify, to describe, to state, these are all level 1. You quote, it's all from the text. To infer, these are the words you use. To apply, to analyze, to evaluate, and to create. This you should keep posted up in your classroom somewhere, because we must move away from just asking this, because that is the Thackett story. They can answer all of that even though they don't understand anything. But this is where things change. This is where we get our learners to really think at a completely different level. So I have now chosen for this, this is a feature matrix. And I've decided, you know what? I want to ask questions that will involve interpreting, comparing, evaluating, and rewriting. Those are the 4 higher order skills I want to do. And those come in the 3rd and 4th level comprehension questions. So I create this framework and I'm saying, right, here you're going to put information in of the 1700s. Here you're going to put information in of the 1800s. Here we go from 1950, 1970, 1880 to 2000. How were the resources of the food from the ocean impacted? So learners have to go back. They have to go back to the reading piece, and they have to look. So I've highlighted in yellow. right, in the reading piece. At that time, all our resources we could get for food and for transportation with no problem. People turned to the ocean as a resource to improve their lives. But then in the 1700s, they started doing other things and the whale populations were decimated. And to increase crop yields, what did they do? They used the use of whatever they did harmed marine ecosystems. So your learner has to work through this and find the information, right? They have to find the information. And once they have that information, they're going to write it in here. So you're going to have, this is like a beautiful trajectory, moving from the 1700s right through to today on how the resources from the ocean was impacted by pollution or by overuse, right? So that's for grade 8, that's one paragraph question, right? Then we say, what were the new harvesting methods used in the different areas? And we go back and we look at what the harvesting methods were used. And you see, I've highlighted all the dates in pink so that they could look at new technologies like faster ships, large harpoons, made commercial whaling. There was an international moratorium because of that. Then to increase the crops, they used chemical fertilizers. And then later on, they used, there was mercury poisoning. So your learners have to go through all that in the text and fill it in across here under what happened in the 1700s, what happened in the 1800s, what had happened in the 1950s, etc. How did pollution occur? They have to fill it in here from the text. How did this pollution impact life in the ocean and on Earth? And they have to fill it in the text. What was the impact on ecosystems? And they have to fill it in the text. So what you have now is they've had to go and read and interpret in order to get this information. And they had to read and compare. No, so now you can ask from this. You have all this information, you can ask an information. You can ask a question. Compare how the resources from the ocean has become less between the 1700s and currently. Beautiful essay question. They're making a comparison. You can say evaluate the impact of pollution on the ocean and on the earth. And they have to look across here and they can make that evaluation. Fantastic. Or you can say rewrite the impact on ecosystems and they can look across here. Or you can say, let's look at how pollution has impacted um, um, our oceans and human life between the 1880s and 2000, and then they work down here. So this is you can do this, and this can be your assessment, right? Grade 8s. This can be a beautiful assignment that they do. You give them the piece of reading, and they can work in groups, and they have to fill this in and possibly answer 2 or 3 questions below it. Absolutely marvelous. Now, what are the benefits of using the feature matrix? These activities allow learners to process and gather information from a text. It assists with answering questions who, what, and how. It develops ways of thinking so they become systematic and they are able to reason. It helps them to plan more effectively so they synthesize and think more critically. They integrate concepts, so they synthesize and analyze. It can be used as a self-assessment tool, so they apply this themselves and they can evaluate themselves. It can develop higher order thinking skills through analysis, allows the learner to infer information from the text, inference. It provides sets of data which they can then analyze. Isn't that fantastic? Absolutely marvelous. So I want to show you how else you can do it. This is children's rights in grade 4 that I did, and I showed them it was a video, and what I did was it was a little play, and I rewrote it, created a text of it. So they read that, then I put all these, I made these, took pictures, where I couldn't find pictures, I made little statements. And what they do is they have to cut these out and paste it under the rights. But all these are discussed in here, all those rights. Okay. So that's one other way of doing a feature matrix. Then also that lesson you saw me do on the river habitats. Here's a feature matrix. You can put the grassland habitat, forest habitat, sea habitat, river habitat. Use one word to describe the habitat. So they describe the habitats. Give an example of animals that they give. So what they can do is they can look at the grassland habitat and write a little paragraph by just looking at the information down here. Or the sea habitat. Or they can compare animals and the habitats, right? So beautiful, fabulous. And this you can use as an assessment as well. Triangles in mathematics, you give the information and you have a feature matrix. So they must give the name of the triangle, the property of the triangle, of the sides, the properties of the angles. They must measure it and work out measure the slides and round off. They must work out the perimeter and the area. Amazing. Another feature matrix. Okay, so the feature matrix is absolutely a marvelous tool to use to teach, but also to use as an assessment. Now here I've got a grade 8 or 9 mathematics lesson. And yes, this does not have vocabulary in, it's not English, but I'm just showing you that you can use it because it has absolute amazing value. Let's look at x plus 3 times x plus 7. Who can give me the answer quickly? We know the answer must start with x squared. Let's see. Who can give me the answer?
X squared plus
Yeah.
10. I don't know the last one.
Plus 21. There we go. Here's the answer, number 7. So you give the questions and you give the answers, right? So you'll see that A, the learner has to work this out, but they will eventually come to this answer. So you give them a magic square. It's a box with 9, it's a little thingy with 9 boxes. So you have now realized that, let's just go back here, that number 7 is the answer. Am I right? So the learner writes in here number 7. Okay. If we look at the second one, we're going to find the answer. That's 16x squared plus, with 16x squared plus 5. So it's 3. The answer is number 3. So you're going to write in there number 3. And you're going to continue, and this is what you're going to end up with, right? That is going to be your, oh, what happened now? There we go. So that is going to be your answers. Now I want you to look at this and tell me, why do we call this a magic square? Quickly, teachers, you have a few minutes. Why do we call this a magic square?
Because
Anybody?
each row adds up to 15.
Brilliant. That adds up to 15. That adds up to 15. That adds up to 15. This adds up to 15. This adds up to 15. This adds up to 15. Now, what is amazing about this is that if your child has found out what is magical about the square, he or she can go back to his or her answer and see that he got it wrong, and they can assess themselves. It's a self-assessment tool. You are empowering your learner to work out these sums, find the answers. When they go and see it doesn't add up to 15, they have to come back and they have to assist themselves in terms of redoing the sums and finding the correct answers. But this is also a way of doing it. You have ecosystem. What will A be? What number does A match A? Quickly, teachers, what number matches A?
2.
7. right? Equilibrium means
Oh,
balance 3. Now you see again, it's 7 and 3 again. So you're going to add, you're going to do this, and they can go back if they don't add up 15, but they get clever. So what they're going to do is they're going to know the sequence of the numbers. They're going to know I must have a 7, a 3, and a 5, a 2, a 4, and a 9, a 6, a 8, and a 1. The kids are cleverer than, they're smarter than what we are. So what I'm giving you here are 2 other alternatives. So you mix them up and you do them split far apart so that they forget. So all of these are magic squares. So you create what you want them to understand and you give possible answers, but you put the answers against the numbers that are going to give you 15. So you either use these combinations, this which we have used, or these combinations. Fabulous self-assessment tool. Your learner will do the work. You'll tell them it's a magic first do the work, find the answers, you tell them it's a magic square, then they have to go back and make sure that their answers are correct. Okay. So now we're going to do the last activity, is the close activity. And we sometimes think that this is an activity that just asks learners to fill in words, but it's not. It's a diagnostic technique. It provides information about the strategies that readers use when they are trying to construct meaning. And the technique requires readers to read a passage with deleted words, but it follows the idea of reading as a problem-solving process. And in this case, it teaches you how to construct meaning from print. And you're going to listen to the video quickly.
After teaching students a new concept, it's time to assess their overall understanding and comprehension. When this includes a heavy dose of new vocabulary, utilizing a close strategy with a Z is one of my favorites. At first glance, a close passage may appear to be a simple fill in the blank. However, if you follow particular parameters, you can develop a powerful vocabulary assessment tool. First, let me be clear as to when I propose using a closed passage. I'd use it after learning as a vocabulary assessment. Otherwise, you're going to just have kids arbitrarily plucking words and filling in blanks, guessing as to what you want. So let's assume you've studied a concept, for example, organisms in science, and you're ready to wrap up the unit of study and give some kind of assessment. And one of the things you really want to measure is students' understanding of essential vocabulary. So you want to try a closed passage. The first step is to make a list of the key terms that you expect students would have mastered during this unit on organisms. Then generate a summary of the content covered and use those words, those domain-specific terms within the summary. Such a summary might look and sound like this, and that leads to step 3, where you then strike through the terms you expect students to be able to fill in. So the whole concept of a closed strategy is that students can insert the missing words within the context of that paragraph. However, don't think that after these 3 simple steps, you're good to go. This is a pretty common mistake that teachers sometimes make. You have to plan to revise that first draft. You see, the secret to a well-written closed passage is the use of context clues. With this being the first draft, what you're going to want to do is insert information before and after each of those blanks to provide students some helpful hints. Remember, you wrote a simple summary of content, but you didn't really embellish, elaborate, and develop each of the ideas. You were just talking globally. Well, if we want students to really think through what fits in the context of this passage, then you have to provide them some context. Otherwise, they're just playing guess what the teacher wants and fill in the blank. So step 4 of creating a closed passage assessment is to go back and insert in synonyms and examples and other helpful clues. So, for example, using our organisms passage here, my original sentence was, organisms compete for the resources they need to survive when living in the same ecosystem. Okay, wait a minute. It's really hard when you put 2 blanks in one sentence. So you might break that up. And hey, if resources is what we're trying to get kids to infer, then let's give some examples of resources in the adjacent sentence. Organisms compete for the blank they need to survive. These include air, water, food, and space. Now, if we're also trying to get them to understand ecosystem, then what about some synonyms? Community, habitat, ecosystem. Putting all 3 of those with 1 being a blank in a row, that is a context clue. When making your revisions to your initial summary, you want to remember what we teach students about inferring context clues as readers. We tell them to look for helpful information, details, definitions, examples, and to look before the unfamiliar word and after the unfamiliar word. That's how authors help you figure out an unfamiliar word. So in the revision, we have to do that as well. The final step is to rewrite the whole summary, adding in those extra context clues, details, and add a title, as that helps kids with main idea and kind of get their thinking started. And finally, delete those vocab terms to create the blanks that the students have to fill in. Within the print version of this video article, you'll find a list of additional tips for how to differentiate a closed passage for younger students, ELLs, and those with special needs. After teaching students,
Thank you, teachers. And I think this is so important. The worst thing to do for a struggling reader is to wait and see if they'll catch up. The longer you wait to get help for a child with reading difficulties, the harder it will be for that child to catch up. If help is given in 4th grade rather late than late in kindergarten, it takes 4 times as long to improve the same skills by the same amount of time. I want to say thank you very much. Are there any questions? Do you have any comments you would like to make? Because I know we are 5 minutes over time. Any questions or comments?
Okay, while everyone is waiting or typing the questions, I just want to thank you, Heather, for this insightful workshop. We've really learned a lot. And then thank you so much for sharing all your expertise with us. I'm going to post a link in the chat box if you guys don't mind just completing a very short feedback form. And then I'm going to say thank you for your time. And Heather, thank you very, very much. We really
It
appreciate
was
this.
awesome. Thank you very, very much, Alette and Ricky. And teachers, I'm saying sad to see you go, but go and be the best teacher that you can be. And I do hope that these strategies are going to make a difference in your classrooms. So thank you.
Sure it will. Thank you so much.
Do you need